How's it going, everybody? Gaurav Bhatt and Mihir Vasavda here. You're listening to the Express Sports Podcast, and it's game time, the final game time of 2021. We made it to the end of 2021. अब एकदम से हमारे सारे दुख टुकड़े सब गायब हो जाएंगे January 1st के आते ही. I remember the opening of last year's final podcast. I called it a cursed goddamn year. काफी deja vu वाली feeling है regarding 2021 as well. I said let's just shoot the breeze last year, and this year it's more of the same, but possibly some more recollections, some favorite moments of the year. And for that, we are calling this, whatever, call it a New Year bonanza, Christmas special, or meet the press, whatever you want to call it. We have invited the Express sports team, the entire sports team, to share their thoughts on the year that was. काफी familiar voices रहेंगी, काफी new voices रहेंगी, and हम hope करते हैं कि 2022 में they will become familiar to you. But Mihir, we have also decided upon a newish format, एक थोड़ा अलग करके, जो कि काफी मुश्किल भी हो सकता है, but काफी interesting होगा at least. So tell our listeners.
Well, I think मुश्किल हमारे लिए शायद गौरव इतना नहीं होगा, maybe शशांक के लिए होगा, because he has to then edit and package it and make it look seamless. So हमारा तो शायद थोड़ा easy काम इसमें हो जाएगा. So what we are trying to do is doing a wannabe radio show perhaps. That's the thought. कि हम एक के बाद एक we'll call our colleagues, our friends, and discuss what 2021 was about or is about for them, since we are still 6 days away from its end. तो एक तरह से नया concept है, like Gaurav said. काफी सारे हमारे colleagues हैं who haven't really been on the podcast. They'll be here for the first time. So really looking forward to it. And first up, we have Nihal Koshi, our friend of the pod. A regular for our listeners. You'll recognize his voice in an instant, especially today, because he's just back after ensuring the mixie in his kitchen is off so that his sound isn't distorted. Welcome, Nihal.
It's Christmas time. There's a lot of cooking happening.
Yeah, it's Christmas time, and since you've been making us work very hard, we are ensuring that we'll at least snatch 5 minutes of yours during this vacation period and ask you about the year gone by. What's it been like for you? What's your favorite memory, Mr. Koshi?
Favorite memory? I don't know. Maybe more than memories, it would be, I wouldn't use the word nightmare, but if I can find a better word, of the page not going on time. Because
well, that's here to stay actually.
Because we are working remotely, and then किसी का भी मेरे साथ भी हुआ है कि 12 बजे beautiful page ready है with great headlines, या किसी और ने बनाया, सब ready है, page fire किया पर कहीं जा ही नहीं रहा. Jokes apart, sporting wise, I think one would be the Sushil Kumar story. The fact that the most successful Olympian from India allegedly involved in a murder and he's behind bars. You never expected it. Yeah, Sushil Kumar plays a contact sport, and yeah, there have been a lot of Pahalwans who have got involved in things they should not. And we've heard of Pahalwans who don't make it, who have become bouncers or at toll plazas, who are hired goons. But Sushil Kumar, no one expected this. He was always so polite, so humble, did the right things. So that was something. And what else? The other two things, I think, for me, we always have these debates, no? Like across sports, but we have had it. Mihir, Gaurav will remember. And even when Daksh was there, that was a debate which would come up. Who's greater, Messi or Ronaldo?
No doubt, Mr. Koshi, it's Ronaldo.
Yeah. Oh, great. Yeah. So I loved watching Messi play, but I just thought he was just like, my thing was everything was sort of built around him. You know, in Barcelona, he was in the academy from a young age. They supported him so much. The team was built around him, all that. And I just felt he was like wrapped up in cotton wool. And one other thing is I never felt he showed emotion. So, and I like Ronaldo because he's I wouldn't say he's half the player Messi is skill-wise, but of course, he's not as skillful as Messi. But he's got his strengths, of course. Ronaldo is also a great player. So I was leaning towards Ronaldo. And I would always compare Messi with Maradona. Maradona was so full of emotion, so raw. He was more Argentine. He was the Argentine you could identify with. Emotional, full of talent. And when you saw Messi cry twice this year, when they won the Copa America and when he had to leave Barcelona, the first time you felt like, yeah, this guy is also sort of human and he has emotions. And I sort of felt like, yeah, you can't connect with him. Otherwise, he was such a beautiful player, but he was sort of machine-like for me because you never really saw the human side of him. That's another thing. And the third thing, I think, was Simone Biles pulling out of the Olympics. I mean, out of the team event and not participating in all events because of mental health related issues or pressure. She doing it at the highest level, a champion athlete who was expected to dominate and having the guts, I would say, to say that I'm not okay, I can't do this was a very strong message because mental health and mental pressures are a silent killer. Forget athletes, even across professions. I'm sure even some journalists have gone through it, yeah. And to say that, like, it's like a big statement because now it makes it okay. No, you can, like, suppose there's a CEO and he's going through something terrible. I mean, mentally, nobody can see it and he wants to just take a break. It will be okay because there is the Simone Biles who's done it. Like, it's a very strong statement. And I think that was more important. That was as important as the gold medals. It's not, I think, more important than the gold medal she's won. Of course, if she hadn't won so many goals, it wouldn't have become such big news. But yeah.
Absolutely. I trust Nihal Koshi to come prepared and take us through an emotional roller coaster of our own. 3 memorable events, all 3 very different. Yeah, absolutely. But thanks a lot, Nihal, for joining in.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Move on to Shashank Nair, the Swiss Army knife of our Express Sports desk. He covers nearly every sport. Har American sport ka use idea hai. NBA, he knows like inside out. F1, he has been following what a topsy-turvy season this was for F1, and Shashank was there with explains and analysis and everything. But right now, Shashank, I want you to tell me, when you think of the year gone by, 2021, what is the standout moment for you while, say, reporting or working on a story or just watching it on TV? What is something that you, off the top of your head, you remember?
Hey guys, hi. So with regards to the F1, I mean, this season was, after the 2016 season, such a change in the whole pace of how, the entire F1 circuit was going about. I mean, there were 2 competitive cars and each was competitive at a certain point of the season. I mean, Red Bull at the start was really good and then Mercedes came back in the second half of the season. And I really, really liked the second half of the season from Mercedes. Because once they made some changes to their car, it was them trying to fight back and get something that they've been winning. So you've seen this team and its drivers in positions where they have had an advantage over other cars and they've been doing quite well. And then the second half of the season was basically them just doing this whole chasing this other team. And it was really fun to watch, I thought, at least. So yeah, that was one really great moment of the season, I guess. Of course, the final race was as mad as it was. So yeah.
Where do you stand on that controversial call? Yeah, was it Drive to Survive ka next season setup karne ke liye taken a call, or was it fair enough?
So basically, the biggest controversy was the unlapped cars, right? Like there is no consistency in their decision making, is what I thought of the FIA at that point. And the issue is pretty simple. Like if this was not last lap of the race, they would have allowed those lapped cars to unlap, and that would have meant that the safety car would have been there for another lap. Because it was the last lap of the last race of the season. And this isn't Max Verstappen's fault or Red Bull's fault or Hamilton and Mercedes' fault. This is purely the FIA. The rules of the game suggested that, the safety car should have been out for another lap so that every car that was lapped could have unlapped themselves. There is no rule that states that, okay, theek hai, 3 jo samne khade hain, unko aage kar dete hain, and then let's let these guys race. So, yeah, I mean, that was not fair on Hamilton, who pretty much led the entire race. So I felt that the way the season went, it would have been fine if either of them, won the championship, I guess.
Thanks, Shashank, for joining today.
Thanks, guys.
And we have joining us now Tushar Bhaduri. Tushar Bhaduri is like the silent workhorse on our desk, the man for all seasons. His knowledge across sports is impeccable. And what he does is basically something that holds together all our copies. He's a master editor, picks up all the tiniest of errors that Gaurav and I make on our pages, and trust us, there are lots of those errors. So, Tushar, I hope you won't be spotting errors today in our podcast, but you're welcome to. But thanks for joining in. And how's 2021 been for you sports-wise?
First of all, I will start with something in Hindi. चने के झाड़ पे चढ़ाने के लिए धन्यवाद. This has been a very strange sort of year because there were big sporting events, but most of them without any spectators. So it had a very surreal feeling. And a lot of it had to do with sports persons being humanized. So if you ask my abiding memory of this year, it would be Simone Biles at the Tokyo Olympics. How she brought the issue of mental health and anxiety into the open. And because in her sport, even the tiniest of error or tiniest of unbalancing or slip up is magnified. So we think of elite gymnasts like her as something superhuman or infallible. So she did something which brought her and the elite sporting world closer to normal human beings. So that is what the most memorable thing, if you can say in a good or bad way, of this year. That's what I will remember.
Tushar, do you find yourself getting used to this, whatever, it's been the new normal for almost 2 years now, but the sort of work that we did, and not just camaraderie, but sometimes we need that close eye on our pages and everything. How do you feel about this new routine, and do you feel yourself getting used to it? Do you see this continuing for another year?
I hope not, because come to think of it, the way we are working right now is not the best way in terms of work-life balance. Because when you go to office, or you used to go to office in ancient times, we knew when work started and when work stopped. Now there's no such demarcation. It gets a bit problematic when you have a child, because he or she won't understand that dad is here, so he must be available to me. So that's a problem. So all this adds up, and that's why I think the issue of mental health that Simone Biles highlighted during the Tokyo Olympics, because it happened at a very high-profile event. And people like Virat Kohli and Ben Stokes, and I think Michael Phelps also talked about these things, how they have suffered in this case. But they talked about it after it had passed. At least Kohli did, and I think Phelps also did. I had suffered during whatever time because I had nothing else to do. I had achieved whatever I wanted to achieve. And as far as Biles is concerned, it happened in real time when she was suffering. And also, it showed that because winning and losing and medals are not the only thing we judge a sports person by.
Very well said, Tushar. Thanks a lot for joining in, and thanks a lot for being the Simone Biles of our Express Sports team and using this platform to raise a very important issue about, the work and social life and life balance. Next up, I would like to introduce Shahid Judge. Shahid has the proper stranglehold on tennis, and it's not just Grand Slam tennis and top tens and ATPs and WTAs. From grassroots, from the very juniors, futures, challengers, every circuit, he knows every player. He's there on the case, on every story. And tennis-wise also, Shahid, a very memorable year in a way. But let's not just stick to tennis or whatever you want to talk about. Your favorite memory or non-favorite memory, or anything that you would like to share about 2021.
Hi Gaurav. Yeah, I may just stick to tennis for this topic. The one that really sticks out for me, despite being a non-Djokovic fan, was the hope of seeing him actually win the calendar slam. I'd be lying if, like I said, I am not exactly a big fan of his game style, of his personality and all. But I'd be lying if I say I wasn't excited to see him actually, go on and win that US Open. Because, this is the first time in my lifetime, and probably will be the only time in my lifetime, that I could have actually seen somebody winning a calendar slam. The last man to do it, Rod Laver, 1969. The last person to do it in 1988, Steffi Graf. Of course, I was nowhere in the picture back in both of those occasions. So this was something like in my living memory, something that I can actually remember and tell people years down the road, even though I was watching it on TV, but I was still watching it and enjoying it. And, when Djokovic dropped the first two sets, and even like his serve was broken in the third, you still have this feeling that he can still somehow come back and win, because you've seen it happen in the past so many times. Like, he'll lose a set for fun, and then like even with a big smile on his face, come back and win that match as if nothing, really no big deal. I was just warming up, cracking my knuckles type of thing. It's like, yeah, we saw what happened in the French Open final against Tsitsipas. So that was a good memory for me to at least see somebody competing and getting to that far. And even though he didn't win, the calendar slam didn't happen, it was still good to see Medvedev go on and get the win. Somebody finally from this next gen stepping up and actually winning a slam by beating a big three while the big three are still around. if I may say, still around. Maybe big two, perhaps. We don't know what's going on with the old man of the tour. But it was still kind of a refreshing thing nonetheless. Well, thanks, Shahid, for that superb analysis and taking us through the entire 2021 season of what has been high-class tennis. I don't know. I mean, we've bashed Djokovic a lot throughout this year. So it's nice to kind of have him featured in this episode in a way. But it's been great to have you. Thanks a lot for joining. And we'll now move on to the guy who's made a crazy debut with Indian Express, Abhishek Purohit. Welcome. You joined Abhishek and immediately it was this big bang moment in world cricket with Ajaz Patel taking 10 wickets in Mumbai. You were covering the test for us. But Abhishek, we won't restrict our conversation only to Ajaz Patel. I'm sure there was a lot that stayed in your memory beyond that. How has 2021 been for you? Please take us through.
Yeah, well, I'll actually like to start with Ajaz Patel. It's not every day that somebody
takes... second, ये तो unfair है. You told me कि Ajaz Patel मत करना. Now you're telling me I'll start with Ajaz Patel. Kind of unfair.
आपने बोल ही दिया तो मैं सोचा थोड़ा औपचारिकता निभा देते हैं, but जाने दो. Yes, so the standout memory for me from 2021 has to be the hockey bronze. Okay, I was fortunate enough to be writing on that match for the Olympics website. And I mean, you know this, Mihir. How many times have we got down from Churchgate Station and walked over to either the BHA Stadium or to Wankhede Stadium and seen the legendary coach Bawa, train his wards. And what stands out for me on my short trips from Churchgate to Wankhede is that thwack of the ball hitting the hockey goal board. That sound has somehow stayed with me over the years. And we come from that generation, that grew up on stories about how India was this great power and in some time which obviously we could never recall. But what we would see was 8th position finish or a 12th position finish in the Olympics. And you'd wonder what is going on. For the Indian team to come back from 1-3 to 5-3 in that bronze medal match against Germany, I still recall it took me at least half an hour after the match ended to get back to my senses. I am being honest, I don't know how many times I burst out crying during that half an hour. Because it was a match against Germany, that Rio's 2016 memory was also fresh, that there should not be a last-minute goal, which we so often concede. I think they actually came close to scoring, but it was saved by Srijesh, thankfully. So that's my standout memory.
अभिषेक, हमारे बीच कुछ समझौता नहीं हुआ एजाज पटेल को लेके, so I would definitely like to ask you. Of course, because having read your blog and in that press box, just take us through and take us, the listeners, through what was the moment when you realized that this was a possibility that, he might go on to take all 10?
Yeah, I had asked this question to Ajaz himself during the idea exchange as well. That when did it strike you that you were about to take 10? And he said it was after the 9th wicket fell. But since we are journalists with immediate deadlines, I think all of us started to panic after the 7th wicket fell. Okay, I still remember people finishing their food quickly and disconnecting whatever calls they were on, and panic spreading in the press box. People frantically checking Cricinfo, Cricbuzz, bothering the scorers, pulling out stats tables. It for at least 10-15 minutes, there was absolute panic. It's crazy, right? You have one eye on the laptop. You are constantly checking your phone. Okay, boss, my editor could be calling me any moment. And you are still trying to keep an eye on the action unfolding in the middle. I think I had just finished school when Anil Kumble took 10 wickets. And yeah, I remember watching bits of it on television. But this, I don't think anything comes close to this. I mean, who sets out in the morning and says, boss, I'm going to watch 10 wickets being taken today? It's unreal, right? So this one will stay with me forever.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Abhishek. We hope to hear a lot more from you on the podcast in the coming year. And thanks for joining in. Let's move on to a person who was here on the podcast quite regularly during the T20 World Cup for our special series World Cup Locker Room was Shramik Chakravarti, who covered the Team India debacle, and he has been covering the fallout ever since. But Shramik, we will not restrict you to cricket only. Whatever is on your mind regarding sports and even non-sports wise, what is something that comes to your mind when you think of 2021? Please share with us and our listeners.
No, I'm sticking to sports only. As far as sport is concerned, absolutely my favorite moment would be the 7-hour, 45 minutes game that played between Magnus Carlsen and Jan Nepomniachtchi at the World Chess Championship. See, everybody is a Magnus Carlsen fan. And that game encapsulated Carlsen's genius in the sense that in our field, sometimes we use the word genius pretty loosely. Sometimes Rishabh Pant reverse scoop is called a stroke of genius, which is not. I mean, genius is Magnus Carlsen, genius is Bobby Fischer, genius is Don Bradman with 99.94 average. That is genius. That is the very definition of genius. But what stood out in that World Chess Championship, that in a sport completely dominated by computer, Magnus won because he is human. During the World Chess Championship, the Grandmaster Surya Sekhar Ganguly was writing for us and he was offering his insight. And one point he mentioned that stuck in the sense, he said, see, computer evaluation is like that. If you have 10 moves in front of you and every move you play could be a draw, while your opponent has 10 moves in front of him, and he has to play 10 correct moves to earn a draw. But computer evaluation will call it 0.00, it's equal, but it is not equal. There is a massive difference. So Magnus's genius transcended everything. And moving out from chess, another very heartening moment for me was the failure of botched ESL European Super League attempt. So these are the two very striking moments as far as sports is concerned.
Great. Thanks, Shamek. I think two, again, very important points and very big events that have occurred in 2021. And 2022 will be a busy year. I don't know, I'm not a keen chess follower, but football-wise, I'm pretty sure it will be quite busy. So we'll have you more often in 2022. Thanks for joining us. Up next, we have the man I called Big Brother, not just because, well, he's older to me, but also because he has his eyes everywhere. He knows what's happening everywhere in sporting world and in world in general. Sriram Veera, welcome.
Thank you.
You are recording this just hours before the Adda with Ravi Shastri. I'm sure that will be quite kick-ass. But 2021, what's it been like for you?
Yeah, I'll focus on the sports. At least I watch sports to see if those cliches come true. Those moments where we generally talk about sport, but it rarely happens. But sometimes something happens and then any smart comment within your own head, within my own head. When something is unfolding, I said, yeah, go on. Or I watch something good. But very hardly is like everything, the internal voice stops. Internal, the smart aleck comment stops and you're just watching. Those kind of cliches, I think happened twice here this time, both in the Olympics. First was that in high jump. So this Gianmarco Tamberi from Italy and his friend Mutaz Ezabashin. When that happened, it was stunning. So I'll just briefly run for the people who haven't heard about it or who didn't watch it. So these two are, I think it's a final high jump needed. He's going for a 2.41. Tamberi is attempting 2.41. Barsham, the champion, is attempted and failed. So he's on 2.39. So if Tamberi clears 2.41, he will be the world champion, the Olympic champion. If he doesn't, the two will have to go into another show off. They'll have to go for the next jump together. So he tries and he fails. And then he said, okay, now they're going to go again. And then the official goes and asks and tells them, Barsham, that then Barsham asked him, can we share the gold? And it was like stunning. He's like, what? I was like watching, what's happening? And they look at each other and then the official says, yeah, it's up to you. And Barsham looks at Essa and same thing. They don't talk. They just look at each other and that's it. They've decided and they're in each other's arms, leaping and jumping. This, if I had background had happened or known, I would have been making it. Yeah, get a room, guys, or something I would have said. When that's happening, unfolding, and this is goddamn Olympic stage, it's like everything's like, what? So that moment, it was crazy.
Well, thanks a lot, Sriram. And we at the Express Sports Podcast would, like to thank you for regaling us throughout the 2021. You have been a regular, and we hope to hear a lot more from you in the coming year. And thanks a lot for making it to the year end.
Cheers.
Not just making it to the year end, I meant
staying alive
on the podcast episode. Well, that too. Chaliye. And let's move on to Devendra Pandey. And like I said about Shahid Judge and tennis, Devendra Pandey, his cricket reportage isn't just limited to, test team mein kya ho raha hai and what is happening in the ODI team or whatnot. From the very grassroots level of cricket, and every junior, every under-19 player every Ranji player he knows, and he knows them dearly. He follows their cricket very closely. He has a close eye. मैं कहूंगा कि नब्स पे ही उंगली नहीं है, ऑक्सीजन परसेंटेज भी चेक करते रहते हैं वो क्रिकेट की थ्रू आउट द ईयर. एंड देवेंद्र, you've always been a hit whenever you are on the podcast, तो बिल्कुल स्वागत है. और बताइए, what has been the memorable moment for you from 2021?
Okay, मेरा तो basically it's not from the cricketing this thing, but it's behind the cricketing scene पूरा. विराट कोहली indirectly calling सौरव गांगुली a liar. कभी ऐसा हुआ नहीं था. जितना मैं कवर करते आ रहा हूँ, एक कप्तान आके बाहर आके बोल रहा है, बॉस मुझको तो किसने बोला ही नहीं है. इट्स लाइक दीवार फिल्म का सीन याद आ गया. तुम मुझे वहां ढूंढ रहे थे और मैं तुम्हारा यहाँ इंतजार कर रहा हूँ. फॉर मी विराट कोहली का वो जो स्टेटमेंट है स्टैंड आउट रहेगा ये पूरा एंटायर ईयर. दैट ओपन द पेंडोरा बॉक्स कि ये पूरा बीसीसीआई कैसा फंक्शन कर रहा है.
थोड़ा सा इंट्रीगिंग तो रहा है वो देवेंद्र भाई, 100%. वी डोंट नो, आई थिंक एक ट्रेलर सा हमने देख लिया है 2021 के एंड में. आई थिंक पूरी पिक्चर 2022 में आएगी. आई थिंक सबसे बड़ी ब्लॉकबस्टर शायद वो ही ना हो जाए. व्हाट डू यू थिंक, वो ब्लॉकबस्टर होने की कोई इसमें क्षमता है? 1983 की फिल्म को बीट करेगा इन टर्म्स ऑफ बॉक्स ऑफिस रिकॉर्ड?
इसमें ये तो है कि विनर तो कोई, देखो पहली बार ऐसा हुआ है कि सम क्रिकेटर हैज स्टूड अगेंस्ट बीसीसीआई कॉलिंग देम लायर, बिकॉज ऐसा आज तक कभी नहीं हुआ इंस्टीट्यूशन को किसी ने डायरेक्टली टेक ऑन लिया हो. नोइंग विराट कोहली दिल्ली का लड़का है और अब बात हुई है नहीं हुई, इट्स बिटवीन टू इंडिविजुअल. सौरव गांगुली ने आगे इतना बड़ा स्टेटमेंट दिया, बाद में विराट ने सीधा काउंटर कर दिया. बॉस विराट चाहता तो चुप हो सकता था. विराट ने अच्छी गेंदबाजी खेली है, वर्ल्ड लीडर रहा है, बड़े बड़े रन मांगा है, पर ये जो इसने फेस करेगा अब बिसाइड साउथ अफ्रीका टूर, वो इंटरेस्टिंग होगा. बिकॉज बीसीसीआई इतनी जल्दी छोड़ेगा नहीं बॉस, क्योंकि दे विल सर्टेनली कम एट हिम. और क्रिकेटर्स का फॉर्म ऊपर नीचे होते ही रहता है. यू राइट, जो नेक्स्ट ईयर आएगा अगर पिक्चर बनेगी तो बड़ी अच्छी बनेगी. विराट के तीर तो निकल चुके, अब देखना पड़ेगा कहाँ कितनी दूर जाएगा.
हम उसका बेसब्री से इंतजार करेंगे.
देवेंद्र भाई, एक चीज पूछना चाहूंगा, ये 83 फिल्म देखने जाओगे आप या आपको इंटरेस्ट है? क्या लगता है आपको, ये इतना मेमोरेबल एक जो टूर्नामेंट था उसका फिल्मी रीमेक करना, तो इंटरेस्ट तो ऑडियंस में तो रहेगा, बट एज अ क्रिकेट करेस्पॉन्डेंट, एज समबडी हु हैज सीन इट क्लोजली, और वो कितनी बार रिलीव किया रहेगा अपने मोमेंट, आपको कितना इंटरेस्ट है पिक्चर देखने में?
आई थिंक आई विल नॉट गो, बिकॉज मैं इतनी बार हर साल उसको लिख चुका हूँ कि मुझे अभी कोई इच्छा नहीं मेरे भाई. मुझे याद है बिफोर 2011 वर्ल्ड कप हर साल हमने दिल्ली वेंकटेश्वर को फोन करना, किरमानी को फोन करना, श्रीकांत को फोन करना, वही चीज अपना, तो वो जहन में बैठ गया. तो एज मिस्टर रणवीर सिंह said we are here to win, और मैं तो यहाँ लिखूंगा बस I will not go, I will just see from probably somewhere down the line in TV, but surely not in theaters.
I'm sure वो बहुत जल्द नेटफ्लिक्स पे आ जाएगा, कहीं नहीं तो नेटफ्लिक्स, प्राइम या हॉटस्टार या कोई भी ओटीटी प्लेटफॉर्म. हम यहाँ पर किसी को प्रमोट नहीं कर रहे, नो वन इज स्पॉन्सरिंग अस येट, सो हम किसी को स्पेसिफिकली प्रमोट नहीं करेंगे. बट ऑन दैट नोट, थैंक यू देवेंद्र पांडे फॉर जॉइनिंग अस. अप नेक्स्ट इज I think, Gaurav, I won't be exaggerating if I say that he is undoubtedly the most resourceful man on our desk, Nitin Sharma. We talk about Devendra Pandey knowing Bombay Maidans and domestic cricket and Shahid about tennis, but I don't think anyone in the country, or there are very few in the country who have covered Punjab sports as well as Nitin Sharma. Of course, his coverage goes beyond Punjab, but you name a sports person from Punjab and Nitin knows everything back of his hand. Not just the athlete, but his backstory, his family, you name it, and he has it. So for the very first time, we are very grateful to have Nitin Sharma with us on this pod. Nitin bhai, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Mihir.
और आपके बारे में बताइए, 2021 में what's been your favorite memory?
Yeah, there have been two memories, both of them emotional, and both of them kind of interconnected. The first one, you all know the demise of Indian athletics legend Milkha Singh. And the moment was like how Abdul Khalik, his rival son Muhammad Izaz, paid the tribute to Milkha sir, how he spoke about his father being a army man and how he was Asia's best athlete in 100 meter and 200 meter, and how the two families connected and how the athletes shared their rapport with among themselves, like how Milkha sir defeated Abdul Khalik through a tape finish in 1958 Asian Games, and then how Milkha sir defeated Abdul Khalik in 1960 in Lahore. So he spoke about all that, and with his demise, Muhammad Ijaz paid tributes to Milkha sir, saying that such athletes are family jewels for their countries, and how it's a big loss for both India and Pakistan, and how Mohammad Izaz shared his memories of Milkha Sir, that how Milkha Singh visited Abdul Khalik in Meerut jail post the Bangladesh war. And Abdul Khalik's wife also paid tributes to Milkha Sir's demise. So that was one emotional moment, perhaps the biggest emotional moment for the country as well as the athletics world the last year. And second was, how Neeraj Chopra won the Olympic gold medal, and how their coaches, his friends and all, they celebrated at Panipat and Panchkula, where he had started and spent more than 7 years training. So when he threw the first throw of 87.03 meter at the Tokyo Olympic Stadium, I happened to be at the Duide Stadium, Panchkula, where more than 500 kids and his coaches, Naseem Ahmed and other friends like Narendra Ranbir and all, they were present. And how they recalled his days as a trainee at the academy, and how he used to cook food and all the technical things also they talked. So that was a big moment. And then when he won the medal, then Jeev also called, and Jeev shared his thoughts, like how if his father Milkha Sir would have been alive, it would have been a special moment for him as well. So those two moments stood out for me.
Absolutely, Nitin, and very poignant moments. But also your reportage, like Mihir said, it wasn't just about athletes. You even got hold of the one-time dhaba cook who was following Neeraj Chopra's rise very closely, very carefully. And Neeraj himself was quite appreciative of the reports and of hearing from his, one-time dhaba cook. So have you gotten a chance to get back in touch with the guy? And अब उनका जैसा नीरज का तो पूरा हलाबलू चल रहा है एंड ही हैज बीन नॉन स्टॉप इन एक्शन, अब उन कुक साहब का अब क्या कहना है? एंड इवन नाउ ही मस्ट बी वेरी हैप्पी, राइट?
Yeah, he is very happy, Kashmiri Lal, and I guess he had some work at his home, so he could not come to the stadium to watch that historic moment on that day. But then after that, they are planning, when Neeraj comes back, they are planning a get-together for Neeraj. He came to Chandigarh 3 or 4 times, but he didn't get time to go to the stadium. So the cook, Kashmiri Lal, he plans to give him a feast of the halwa puri and the chana treat to Neeraj, which he likes, whenever Neeraj plans to come or gets time to visit.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Nitin, for joining in, and thanks a lot for your wonderful reporting throughout this year. Next up, we have Shivani Nayak, always a fan favorite, always a pleasure to have her on the podcast. We did a wonderful 3-part series previewing the Olympics, Mihir, Shivani and I. And Shivani, almost all your predictions, your breakdown, it came true. Definitely been a busy year, but has it been memorable? And which are the incidents, which are the memories that come to your mind?
Yeah, so almost all my predictions except Neeraj Chopra, who I categorically said that he would not win, and I was so pleasantly surprised that he did and went on to win the gold, which incidentally is probably the first gold that I've seen. When Bindra won, I think I had overslept that morning, and so I don't remember anything of the live relaying of that gold. So this was like my first gold. I was pretty excited. Yeah, so it's been a busy year, and it's been a very, very entertaining year for sports.
I love that her favorite memory is just getting Neeraj Chopra's prediction wrong. That's
and also waking up late for Bindra's gold. So
oh God, no.
Clearly doesn't believe in our gold medal contenders a lot. Huh?
No, I think my favorite memory again will be, so basically this badminton player, Akane Yamaguchi, her finally winning the world championship like last week. That is easily like the best moment for me this year. Women's singles is that sort of a scene where you can't really have one favorite, though obviously Sindhu ends up being every Indian's favorite. But just watching Yamaguchi, who's like 5'1", I've just watched her lose so many matches that to actually see her come through in that final against a player who I completely admire because of her skills and her deception. So watching Yamaguchi beat Tai Tzu Ying in that final was just nice. It was great to watch. And her reaction was absolutely epic. She didn't react at all. She just gave a thumbs up to the camera. She didn't know what to do on the podium. So she is this extremely adorable player. The first time I heard of Yamaguchi was when Japan kind of withdrew her because they wanted her to give the Japan's equivalent of a terminal or unit test, like a terminal exam, and they did not let her travel for the World Championships, saying, no, you have to sit and give your exams. So she was almost a kid when she kind of emerged on the international scene. And then to watch her win the World Championships. That was awesome.
I'm sure you would be pleased to see Srikanth also doing well. I mean, you noted in your report that it comes with a lot of riders, but since you like Srikanth, the way he plays and stuff, I'm sure that must have been a pleasing moment for you as well.
I am a massive fan of Srikanth's game, okay? And it is extremely frustrating when he does not win. But then I've kind of settled into this frame of mind where even when he's losing, I like his game. So, low expectations, frankly. But having said that, since he's made the finals, 2022 will be a year to really look forward to.
It is. And sometimes it's, I think, fun to watch people lose beautifully rather than win boringly. And I think Srikanth is one of those players. Thanks, Shivani. And I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot more from you going forward in 2022. We have with us Andrew Amsan. Well, Andrew and I, we share a lot of very sad jokes on the desk, but he certainly goes beyond that. Andrew has been a messiah for a lot of athletes, breaks down their stories, their lives, but also understands he one of the few people who's been tracking Neeraj since the very beginning. And Neeraj has had some very important life lessons for him too, one of them being Andrew to lose weight. Andrew, have you succeeded in doing that?
This is Christmas month and probably agle saal.
Wrong time to be asking him such questions. But Andrew, for you, what stood out since you were on the ground covering these events, and especially during the Olympics, these athletes were doing well in Tokyo and you were there on the road, hitting their villages. Neeraj Chopra's gold you saw from very close quarters. But I'm not trying to pigeonhole you into this Olympic stream of things. What was your favorite memory? What do you want to share?
A missed opportunity is the first memory or thing I always think of. This happened in March or April sometime, and there was this domestic meet, and I don't think Neeraj Chopra was participating, but he was there. He was there at the NIS facilities in Patiala. So I had got my story. I mean, the reporting for that day was done, and I was walking back, and suddenly I hear this voice calling me out, Andrew Ji. And I knew for certain it was Neeraj Chopra, of course. And I just turned around. Then in fact, I'll give you a clickbaity I don't know if headlines go on podcasts, a clickbaity headline when Andrew turned down Neeraj's interview request.
Now humble, yaar, tu.
I'm just scared if one of these websites just take this part and actually run a story. So anyways, so I was just walking and just hear this voice calling out Andrew Ji, turned around and kaise ho, and the usual greetings, and it was Neeraj, of course. And then he's sarcastic tone, he was asking me, aaj interview nahi loge? I was like, okay. I wasn't prepared because I had my story for the day, and Gaurav and Mihir would know that I don't work beyond my working hours. So I was already done for that day. So I was walking past. So anyways, coming back to the story. So Neeraj, aaj interview nahi loge? So I was like, oh, I'm not prepared now. What do I say? So aiye na, let's talk. So we just had a chat, and he was actually stuck here in India, no competitions, travel restrictions that time. So we both were just asking what is happening in life, and we both sort of mutually agreed there isn't really anything interesting to write at this point. And we were like, हाँ बाद में बात करते हैं. And बाद में बात करने का time आने तक he eventually became an Olympic champion. So yeah, a missed opportunity, I guess. But yeah, months later, despite his busy schedule, he did take out time to invite me for his sister's wedding. And that wedding invitation, which was a voice note on WhatsApp, he also asked me to take care of my weight.
I'll say, Andrew, very opportunistic and very perfect timely of you to, you've been on the podcast twice, and the entire conversation has been about you and how pally you are with Neeraj Chopra. So it's a very nice Anil Humble moment for you. But and also very brave to be exposing your work habits and kitna working hours baad mein tum nahi karta, since our boss has just joined in on the Zoom, the main man. Thanks a lot, Andrew, for joining in. Let's move on to the national sports editor, Sandeep Duide, who is returning to the podcast after some time. And Sandeep, it has been a memorable year in terms of sporting memories, sporting achievements, breaking into these, uncharted waters, new territories. But closer home, even the work-life balance, Tushar Bhaduri touched upon it on the show earlier. What has been the incidents? What have been the moments that you'd want to share that come to you?
That India's win against Australia, that Rishabh Pant last day, we thought we had seen everything, and then the Olympic happens, and doing all this in times of COVID, like I would have never thought that we could have done it. And honestly, the quality hasn't come down, nor the work hours have definitely gone up. If I was just other day looking at the pages which we made during Olympics or the coverage we had during Australia, Olympics, and later, I think hats off to everybody in the team. The quality just didn't come down. Actually, it has improved, and I think because the work hours have improved. So yeah, it's been a challenge, but I think everybody in the team has been up to it, and it has worked out beautifully well.
Nihal Koshi right at the start mentioned कि उसका सबसे बड़ा nightmare of the year था कि pages release होगा या नहीं. And I'm sure that would be a bigger nightmare for you.
No, I think, I'll tell you about the page. I think Gaurav is here and you are there. I think this is a perfect topic to discuss. I think one of the most discussed page. No.
Brace yourself, Mihir.
No. I'm saying the most discussed page ever in my long innings at Indian Express, which is, I say 25 years, then I recollect, nahi, up to 25 years, तो मैं 3 साल पहले से बोल रहा हूँ. So it's been long. But the best page which has been made and which has been most talked about has been our women's hockey page. And I think Mihir was there and Shahid was there and Gaurav coordinated, and we had this long chat with the designer. We came up with a design, and to do that remotely from 3 different computers, these things can't even be pulled off while sitting in office when everybody is together. But the kind of inputs which you gave, Shahid added to it, and then I send everything to Gaurav formats it, edits it, and then the same time I'm drawing it on a page and explaining the layout to the designer, and the designer comes up with the layout. So it was a crazy thing. And no, honestly, never ever have I seen such kind of praise for the layout, the headline, the content. The content was such a stunning content. So in case people who haven't read about it, we feature the entire women's team and a short profile of every girl who was there. So, and that shows not just about the layout, it shows the depth of Indian Express's coverage, in the sense at such a short notice, the reporters were ready with the facts because they followed them. The kind of coordination which we did on the page, because we've done that before. The kind of confidence we have in each other's capability just showed that, sitting in different places across, Mihir sitting in Japan, Shahid in Bombay, me and Gaurav in Mayurvihar, but not, I think, a few lanes away. But we pulled it off. And designer, Anirban, yeah. So Anirban made that wonderful page. So yeah, that was one thing which I never thought we could achieve it.
Absolutely, Sandeep. Thanks a lot for that insight. क्योंकि अभी 12 लोगों ने we have discussed the sporting moments invariably overlap भी रहा है वो, but this insight into the behind the scenes and what goes in the newsroom, that is very fascinating to look at. And also now the reason why I file my stories at 11:55 of the last day बिल्कुल पेज पे जाने के पहले, तो because वही हमारा process है.
But do you also work within your office hours or you work beyond that?
वो सब तो recording के बाद बात करते हैं. But again, thanks a lot, Sandeep, for joining in, and hope to hear a lot more from you in 2022. Okay, that's one Sandeep done. Sandeep Gopal unfortunately couldn't make it to the recording, though इंडिया देख साउथ अफ्रीका जा रहा है, लंबा सीरीज है, टेस्ट होगा, ओडीआई होगा, एंड ही इज द रेजिडेंट क्रिकेट एक्सपर्ट, तो वी विल बी हियरिंग अ लॉट मोर फ्रॉम हिम इन द कमिंग ईयर एंड बियॉन्ड. बट इवन इन दिस एपिसोड ही विल ensure to send us a snippet of whatever he wants to talk about, and again we will splice it in now.
When I started thinking about my favorite moments, suddenly a lot of thoughts came in. A lot of great moments, just flashed through my mind. And I was spoiled for choice. Right from Australia series to the last Ashes match. There were a lot of great moments. I think personally, I felt Jasprit Bumrah's spell at Oval, the final day, which we won the match. That spell was absolutely superb. It was, you watch it again, you still get goosebumps. That kind of a spell, he was furious, he was pacey, he was just running through. That should be one of the finest spells abroad. And we won that match also. That should be my first favorite moment. And second favorite moment is that Kanpur test, which New Zealand drew. One, because I covered the match after a long time. After almost 2 years, I went to the ground and covered a match, and then you see an absolute humdinger of a match. Last ball, still there was this possibility of India winning as well as New Zealand drawing this match. And then you have two people last week at last man, fighting for the match. And number 11 and number 7, one was making his test debut. The other was just like 5 games or 6 games into his test career. So that last hour and a half was absolutely top class test cricket.
Right. So that's the entire Express Sports team minus 2 very important, I'll say the most important people. Mihir, दो सबसे जबरदस्त spokesperson of the desk, flag bearers, uncharted frontiers में हम झंडे पे झंडे गाड़े जा रहे हैं. And तुमसे start करते हैं. What has been your memorable moment apart from this recording? Because for me it was very memorable. काफी बढ़िया रहा ये हमारा project.
काफी मैराथन रिकॉर्डिंग रहा है. It's been 1.5 hours now since we've been on Zoom. और इससे लंबा Zoom I think हमारे team meetings ही रहे हैं. I think वो काफी है. Yeah, it's been a crazy year. It's been no doubt start of the year. I traveled to Agra for the National Wrestling Championship. That was the first outdoor event I covered since the pandemic began. So वो काफी एक surreal सा था. To be back among the crowd, maskless, no distancing, थोड़ा डर भी लगा था. उसके बाद आके 3 दिन isolate भी किया था खुद को because वहाँ पर माहौल ही ऐसा था. But then you kind of realize कि this is how it is going to be going forward. And of course, the highlight was the Olympics. But I wouldn't really say that, any particular medal or anything because वो काफी सा एक blur सा एक है. Even right now, I don't recall what exactly happened during that moment when a medal was won or a near miss happened or something like that. One moment that remained special, that still feels special, Gaurav, is from the closing ceremony. जब भी वो flame extinguish हुआ, वो थोड़ा सा एक इमोशनल, पता नहीं, थोड़ा सा, मतलब मैं ज्यादा इमोशनल होता नहीं हूँ ये सब चीजों में, बट एक थोड़ा सा एक आई डोंट नो एक फीलिंग सा थोड़ा सा आया बिकॉज काफी क्रेजी कपल ऑफ मंथ्स रहा था इन द बिल्डअप टू द ओलंपिक्स. द अनसर्टेनिटी, एक मोमेंट ऐसा आया था कि आई वाज टॉकिंग टू संदीप एंड वी जस्ट थॉट कि यार छोड़ो, इतना हम लोग क्यों मेहनत कर रहे हैं. एंड इट वाज जस्ट बिजार सा थोड़ा सा बिल्डअप था टू द ओलंपिक्स इन टर्म्स ऑफ द लॉजिस्टिक्स. एट दैट मोमेंट जब भी क्लोजिंग सेरेमनी खत्म हुई तभी यू कुड जस्ट फील दैट stress going out of everyone's body, the organizers, the athletes, the journalists, सब लोग के लिए वो tough था to be at the Olympics, to cover or to pull off the Olympics in middle of a pandemic. And when we look back now, थोड़ा सा you really feel कि how Japan pulled it off is still beyond my comprehension, especially because now we are looking at the Winter Olympics in Beijing and the kind of restrictions they are imposing. उसके सामने तो Japan is like a cakewalk. मतलब उन्होंने कैसे पुल ऑफ किया वो आई स्टिल डोंट नो. एंड वो जो एक मोमेंट था जब एक फ्लेम एक्सटिंग्विश हो गई, आई थिंक वो काफी स्पेशल था. अ लॉट ऑफ अस इन द प्रेस बॉक्स, इन द ऑर्गेनाइजिंग टीम, यू कुड फील दैट थोड़ा सा इमोशनल भी था.
एक तो पहले डोंट बी सो अपोलोजेटिक फॉर फीलिंग, ये डोंट हैव टू बी द रोम कॉम का लीड की थोड़ा सा मैं इमोशनल हो गया, मेरे को आती नहीं वैसे फीलिंग. हाँ, बाय द वे वो गलती से हो गया थोड़ा. It was one of those moments, yeah. I wasn't even there and I was being emotional here. Plus, the other thing that you said about it sinking in, that what Japan has pulled off and what, our team managed to pull off, what you managed to pull off, it only came after a week or even a fortnight कि जब हमने पीछे देखा फिर realize हुआ, oh crap, वो 2 हफ्ता हम लोगों ने किस तरीके से काम किया. So, it has to be favorite moment for me, यार. The question that we have been posing to all these team members, वो ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि अभी यार अगले हफ्ते हम फिर से ट्राई करें कि मैंने क्या बोला था पॉडकास्ट में. फेवरेट मोमेंट शुड बी लाइक 3-4 साल बाद में वी go back to 2021 and we immediately realize कि crap, that was the favorite moment. So I think your reportage and the podcast that we recorded reviewing your journey in Japan and you took us through all those sights and sounds and the struggles, I think that was the favorite moment for me. But अगर specifically sports wise बात करें, Shahid touched upon it. The dismantling of Novak Djokovic in the US Open final by Daniil Medvedev, यार. I was watching that match और अगले दिन पेज पे भी मैं था और मैच चला अपना 3, 3:30, 4 बजे. मैं immediately लिखने लगा कुछ. But when that match was starting, I was already thinking of elements for the page कि ये stats होंगे, whatever. Novak Djokovic winning all 4 slams in the year. It will be his 21st Grand Slam title. He will move past Federer and Nadal. मैं सोच रहा था हेडलाइन कुछ जोकोविच 2021 दे देंगे, 20 को स्ट्राइक थ्रू कर देंगे. एवरीथिंग आई वाज थिंकिंग ऑफ इट, बट इमीडिएटली इट ऑल जस्ट फेल अपार्ट एंड आई वाज थिंकिंग ऑफ प्लान बी बिकॉज मेदवेदेव वाज जस्ट डिस्ट्रॉइंग जोकोविच. एंड लाइक शाहिद सेड, मोमेंट था जब लग रहा था मे बी जोकोविच कैन फाइट बैक. वी हैव सीन इट हंड्रेड्स ऑफ टाइम्स. But the match that you wanted Djokovic to win, the one time that I was rooting for Djokovic in my 31 years of existence, he let me down very badly. वो headline नहीं हुआ और वो मुझे नहीं लगता कभी calendar slam दोबारा आ पाएगा. The other moment is the debut of skateboarders in Tokyo. For whatever reason, I've had a bone to pick with you इस बारे में and काफी point of dissension रहा है इस सब में. But eventually, I think we can agree that it was worthwhile. It was fun to be watching those kids win gold medals और हर बार देखना और हर बार age check करना और average निकालना, mean निकालना कि oh my god, ये podium was 12-year-old or something. It was fun, the different cast and characters, plus what it meant to Japan, the skateboarding event that went so smoothly. I managed to speak with some Japanese skateboarders who are not athletes. They're just regular skateboarders, and they were saying now people can look upon us and they can treat it with at least a semblance of thoda sa respect hai ki yaar, nahin, it's an Olympic sport, let them do their things. Otherwise, skateboarding has always been the counterculture, the rebel sort of an activity. I would like to take this moment to bring in Shashank Bhargava, because I remember Shashank and me recording a podcast. We discussed skateboarding. We also discussed Tony Hawk Underground, the video game, which was gateway drug for us towards skateboarding as a sport. Shashank, you have sat through this 7.5 hour long recording. Sab Express Sports के सारे team members का तुमने बात सुन लिया. This has been a new experience, a new format for you as well. आप मतलब एक के बाद एक अशर भी कर रहे थे, लोगों को अंदर भी ला रहे थे और Zoom से बाहर भी फेंक रहे थे. But apart from this, apart from the recording, that entire 2021, and like it is with you, we're not just talking about sports, whatever is on your mind, something that you would like to share when you look upon this year?
No, I think because it is a sports podcast, like so many other people said, I will stick to sports. And firstly, Mihir going to the Olympics to Tokyo was a major sports highlight for me. I think those recordings were a lot of fun, and even just Mihir coming back and just discussing what it was like there, eating the human noodles as Mihir was... as Mihir was recalling.
I still wonder what that was, though.
Yeah. So there was that. But apart from that, people from the team have already mentioned the number of moments Neeraj Chopra was. For me, was that's the one that really sticks out. And in fact, I was surprised that it was only, I think, Nitin was the first person who mentioned it. Otherwise, for me, I was like, isn't everyone going to mention Neeraj Chopra? Because like for me, it's that big in my head. Apart from that, Sushil Kumar's fall from grace, the alleged murder case that he is involved in, that was big. And there were a couple of, those are not favorite moments, but, I can't not think of them, which was, when Mohammad Shami was trolled after India lost to Pakistan, that was pretty bad. And also in the similar kind of trolling context, Vandana Kataria, when her and her family faced abuses, casteist abuses after the Indian hockey team basically lost a match to Britain at the Olympics. That's again something that, I can't not think about when I'm looking back at the year. And on the lighter side of things, just going through the episodes that we have done. And I recalled, I completely forgotten about that. But remember Nikhil Kamath, that billionaire trying to quote-unquote defeat Vishwanathan Anand?
Oh, that was such a bizarre thing which we forgot.
So and then this was the year when, there was that NFT craze in sports. So that was pretty big and bizarre, and it's still weird and it's still tough to explain. But a big highlight again, Neeraj Chopra and Mihir Vasavda at the Olympics.
Actually, since Gaurav, you mentioned skateboarding, and since you mentioned NFT, Shashank, that was also the only episode we have recorded together since the pandemic began. So memorable also for that. And skateboarding, Gaurav, I think my opinion on these sports inclusion at the Olympics has changed big time after skateboarding's success at the Olympics. And 2022, just as a teaser for the next year, will be even more crucial because we'll see esports debuting at the Asian Games. And that might again trigger ideological differences between us, which is something I'm looking forward to.
Absolutely, there's a lot to look forward to in 2022. And let's put 2021 to rest. From all of us here at the Indian Express, the Express audio team, a very happy new year to all our listeners. Stay tuned to the Express Sports Podcast every Saturday for game time. But more importantly, continue to stay safe. Adios.
You were listening to Express Sports by the Indian Express. This week's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by me, Shashank Bhargav. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.